everyone, and welcome into the offseason. I'm Cassie Carlson, joined by the Score's Mark Grote. He is up at Hallis Hall almost every week as we go through Bears OTAs and rookie minicamp. We're coming off last week. You can also hear him 2 times a week on 670 The Score with Rahimi and Harris. And excited to have you in studio because we were initially supposed to talk about the schedule release, the Super Bowl of the offseason, and then we learned that through an article and a book that's coming out that Caleb Williams and his dad Carl Williams basically went through every single avenue to see if there was a way out of him getting drafted to the Bears. Your reaction to reading that?
Yeah, I was literally reading this on my cell phone as I was walking in from the South Loop, and like, oh my God, because I was in schedule mode. I just did the podcast talking all about the schedule, and I'm like, throw everything away. And the first thing that came to my mind is, oh my goodness, did the Bears dodge a bullet? It was the worst fear during the offseason and pre-draft process that there were rumblings of this, the dissatisfaction of Carl Williams, the father of Caleb Williams. It wasn't until really the combine when we got a chance to talk to Caleb Williams that we started to feel a little bit better about things. And then eventually the meeting with Ryan Poles and Carl Williams and Caleb Williams satisfied everybody. But my goodness, that could you imagine how catastrophic it would have been if the Bears had not been able to get Caleb Williams because Caleb Williams did not want to go to the Chicago Bears.
It's the quote that his dad said in the article. It's where quarterbacks go to die that I think was the most damning line that you saw. And it's not that we don't know that already, but it's that his dad, and Caleb Williams is currently the quarterback in Chicago, put that out there publicly. He didn't go off the record and say that. He wanted it to be known that they were going through all the avenues to the point where he was considering signing with the UFL, which I call knockoff football in a lot of ways, to get around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening to hear things like that. The good part about all of this is that what it really came down to, as Carl Williams put it, all the parts were there. The gasoline was there. It was ready for the spark, but Caleb Williams said no, and paraphrasing, essentially, he didn't want to do that to Chicago. That's a pretty strong, I mean, this ain't a small market. So Chicago very proud, obviously, of its football team, of its sport. So Caleb ultimately made the decision to come here. The other part of this, too, is like where quarterbacks go to die. I don't know if you remember this, but Muhsin Muhammad, a wide receiver for the Bears long ago, also said it's where wide receivers go to die. Who else goes to die in Chicago? There's a lot of death when it comes to going to the Chicago Bears, which is straight up frightening. Do offensive line come here to die? I mean, we've seen that in some cases. Nate Davis, yeah.
Do offensive line come here? Maybe not until this year.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
Just being real. Ben Johnson was on The Herd, and this was just shortly after this article came out, and he was like, hey, he got hired to bring Caleb Williams to new heights, to be the first 4,000 yards passing quarterback in Bears franchise history. He's like, yeah, you can say all you want about what's happening in the past. He's focused on now. And I did feel like once Ben Johnson was hired, because a lot of the article kind of framed it like they didn't believe fully in Shane Waldron or in Matt Eberflus as coaches to be coaching Caleb Williams in his rookie season. But you heard the change in tone from the quarterback himself once Ben Johnson was hired. He let out a scream in his car when he heard the news. He's ready to be held accountable. He's ready to be coached. And I think he's ready to have a coach who has a resume to support the reasoning why he is the head coach and to be the coach of the former #1 overall pick.
Look, I can't think of a more damning thing in Bears history than finally getting to draft #1 overall and to have a guy that a lot of people perceive as the #1 overall pick, and then you do not have the correct head coach. Moreover, you do not have the correct offensive coordinator. Now, good on the Bears that they did some things that were very uncomfortable for them. One of them, firing the offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, quickly, because word had gotten around the locker room that this wasn't working. Veterans were speaking out. Who knows what Caleb Williams was saying? Thank God Caleb Williams didn't have to say a whole lot about it because all the veterans were making indications to us on and off the record about so many things that were going on in that locker room. And then the Bears did something that they had never done before, and that's to fire a head coach in season. So too bad the Bears didn't have the right infrastructure to begin the season, but at least they got rid of those guys and did things that were uncomfortable. And then, as you said, they bring in the guy that everybody wanted. And hopefully it's a different path now for the Bears. And this is how they comport their organization. Because, quite frankly, they need some rehabilitation. They knew that before this, but then when something like this comes out, they've got to keep rehabbing.
With your experience covering the Bears, do you have any concerns that this casts a shadow over Caleb Williams and his career and everything he does for the rest of his time that he is in this market and on this team?
Oh, you mean just because
he put it out there?
Yeah, because he put it out there. Is he going to be that
We're always
diva?
going to reference it.
Yeah, right. Is he going to be the guy that almost... No, the reason I don't think it will is because of the one very important part of the article, and that is that it was Caleb Williams' decision to go through with the Chicago Bears. According to the article, Ryan Poles called Caleb Williams and he said, hey, no matter what, we are still going to draft you. No matter where you're thinking about playing, no matter what Carl is saying, Father Carl, what he is saying about...
Carl, not the Pope.
Not the Pope. See, there's always got to be some sort of... Where was the Pope in all of this?
Yeah, right, we need the Pope.
The Pope was not here in all of this. That's the problem. So maybe it was the Pope that influenced Caleb to say, you know what, despite it all, Dad, I want to still go to the Chicago Bears, because I think he was sort of won over by the city, even though he hadn't had much experience. But Caleb was a smart guy. He understood that. And I think he also understood that the ramifications would have been rough if he had done that to the city of Chicago. Anywhere, any city would have been angry about it, and especially if he didn't succeed where he went. So I don't think that this necessarily follows him around, especially if he is successful with the Bears, which I hope he is.
The Bears do have an OTA practice next week, and we don't know if we're going to be able to talk to Caleb Williams or not. We know there's going to be a ton of questions about this if he does stand up there at the podium. Another part of the article is he really hit it off with Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings when they went through the combine interviews initially. Now he gets to open the season, Monday Night Football at Soldier Field against Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, and J.J. McCarthy essentially in his second rookie season because he went through the injury. We got the schedule, and it's always an exciting day, and you go through it. 5 primetime games for the Bears. I think NFL is betting on the Bears being good this year with Ben Johnson in his first season as head coach. What were your reactions to seeing the schedule as we see it on TV?
You know, I think the first thing that I really noticed this year that there isn't quite the gauntlet of games like there were last year. I mean, you could make the argument that everything was a gauntlet to the Bears last year because they did lose 10 in a row against teams that they should have beat. But last year, and this goes with another part of it, the Bears didn't have a divisional game, a game in the NFC North, until week 11, and then it was just ridiculous.
I kind of liked that, though. I like that there were higher stakes towards the end of the season. Now, it didn't really matter to the Bears at that time because they were on that 10-game losing streak, but I liked waiting for the anticipation of let's see how these teams shake out late in the season.
Well, the way I was excusing it, too, as the season went on was, okay, this is good because Caleb Williams can get his sea legs under him. They can figure out the offense.
Oh, instead, you get 2 coaches fired.
Exactly. Everything was the antithesis of what we thought it was going to be last year. But there was just that ferocious part of the schedule where you had all the division games, throw in a game at San Francisco, throw in a game against Seattle, which was not a bad team last year. This year, there's a couple of rough spots on the schedule, like the back-to-back games against Baltimore and Cleveland, but then there's a softener with the New York Giants. And then I know that there's another gauntlet of like a 4-game thing where you have the Steelers and Minnesota, Green Bay. Yeah, but then at the end of that, you have 4 games into it. Along comes Cleveland to make life a little bit easier. So those were the kind of the things that I liked about the schedule. And I do like starting the season on Monday Night Football, as long as it wasn't the Packers. We've been hurt way too many times. 28, let's just go back. The Jay Cutler era started with a horrible loss to the Green Bay Packers. The Mitch Trubisky era started with what looked like a triumphant game in the first half in 2018 at Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and then comes back in and saves the day. They win that game. And then in 2019, they opened against Green Bay at Soldier Field in primetime, and it was a straight-up dud. So I like that it's Monday Night Football. Moreover, I like that it's against the Minnesota Vikings and not the Green Bay Packers.
So you feel good about the Minnesota Vikings. You're like, all right, they have Kevin O'Connell. They do have Brian Flores' defense. And I was talking about this offseason, all the free agency moves. I felt like the Bears, we talked about it, won the offseason. But I thought the Vikings were right up there with them, with Javon Hargrave, someone coming out. You're like, just what Brian Flores' defense needs, another pass rusher to wreak havoc when he throws out some blitz packages.
I think they got Jonathan Allen on that defense as well, pretty sure, along the line. I mean, I was kind of going through it. I kind of forget where everybody is. But the only thing that you can pin your hat on with the Vikings, like maybe they take a step back because Sam Darnold is no longer there. The head coach is great. So, but they now have J.J. McCarthy, who is he going to be healthy or not? Is he going to be good to go? And if they don't, it's Sam Howell, who's not bad, but I'd put the Bears defense up against Sam Howell in the first game of the week if it does come down to him. And that would be a real upset for Minnesota if they've got Sam Howell quarterbacking on in week 1.
I was kind of surprised that Ben Johnson's return to Detroit comes in week 2 as a 12 o'clock kick. I thought for sure that was going to be prime time. Like, come on, this is one of the biggest storylines of this season is this highly coveted coach goes in the division to a rival, but it's going to be a noon kick in Detroit. Detroit, I feel like there's question marks there too because Ben Johnson's the one that got the most out of Jared Goff. So how are the Lions going to look with 2 new coordinators? Yeah,
they lose their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator. Look, Dan Campbell has been a revelation. I don't think anybody thought that he would be as good as he is. And obviously, Dan Campbell hires good people. So that's the part. Let's not forget about Antoine Randall, who was a calming influence, oftentimes with some high-strung wide receivers on that sideline for Detroit. So that's another guy that is lost from them as well. Unfortunately, I still think Detroit is hands down the best team in the division. I think that they will win the division. They are young. They are fast. I don't think they lost anybody either. Right. At least no significant. Every team loses people. I don't think they had any significant losses of personnel this year except for the coaching staff. So maybe a little bit of stumble because of that, but they've got a whole offseason program and training camp to get the coaching staff right.
So you feel good about that. What do you feel about Matt Eberflus's return to Soldier Field with the Cowboys?
Man,
revenge game.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting to see the Flus, man. What a
or some people are like it's actually Jack Sanborn's return. Okay?
Oh, that's a much better
way. Yeah.
We are going to miss Jack Sanborn. He is from here. I don't know if you know this, but I do a scale of Bears, like 1 to 10. If you are from Chicago, you get an automatic 6 Bears on my scale. So and Jack Sanborn, because he not only is from here and succeeded with the Bears, relatively speaking, he had 7 Bears. So he has 7 out of 10 Bears. Matt Eberflus lost all of his Bears with me. So it's going to be a very interesting. It'll be interesting before the game. Like Cassie, when you're out on the field before the game to see.
I'm going to be eyeing with my phone for social media. Oh, there's Matt Eberflus taking it all in. The place where he last walked off the field, he was getting booed.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see who you get pictures of him hugging and embracing, and moreover, who he's not hugging and embracing.
Wonder what the odds are for hugging Caleb Williams.
Let's work on this. Okay. If we didn't have such serious stuff to talk about today. Maybe I'll do that on the radio. We'll see.
You should. Yeah. Serious stuff to talk about. A bye week in week 5. That's the earliest it can be. Does it matter to you?
It does a little bit. That was one of my minor critiques of I think you can find some sort of rationalization for the bye week happening at any time. And we don't know what's going to happen, like who's going to be injured, who's going to be, doubtful and all that kind of stuff. So it could be at a good time. Ideally, I'd prefer that to be more middle of the season, towards the end of the season. The Bears did have a week 7 bye week last week, but that was more, I think, because of the London game. I think that coincided with that. So if I had to, I would have the bye week later, but it's fine. There'll be a good reason.
It's going to be interesting to see how they respond then going to Washington for Monday Night Football. They gotta make right the fail Mary that happened last year. Luke Nellis asked me a question on our schedule release show last night. He's like, is Tyreek Stevenson a starting corner come week 6?
Wow, what a great question. I love that question. I think he will be.
I think so too.
And the only reason I'm saying that at this moment is because I have a dream. It's not a prediction. A dream that Tyreek Stevenson has a pick 6 to win the game. Could you imagine that?
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Yeah, but then he hot dogs it right in the end zone and somebody knocks the ball.
Why you gotta put that part in?
No. A pick 6 is a pick 6. So that's the dream. In reality, I'll be releasing my wins and losses soon.
Okay, you look at the back half of the season, Packers twice in 3 weeks. I think it's in a matter of 13 days. Do you feel like the Bears are on the right side of that rivalry, or is this one still up in the air for you?
Well, ironically, I do have the Bears winning at Green Bay.
Okay.
Ready for this? And then losing in the home game. There's a little bit of, I mean, that's weird.
Any particular reason?
Well, it's the Thomas Brown effect. Thomas Brown went in there and I think that there should be a Thomas Brown award, quite frankly, because of how Thomas Brown.
First ever interim coach.
Yeah, the first ever interim coach, and then the guy breaks the losing streak at Lambeau Field. So if there's an unexpected win that occurs during the season or something just bizarre, it's the Thomas Brown Award. In this case, it's going to be the Thomas Brown effect. There will be carryover and the confidence that this team has that was instilled by the very authoritative Thomas Brown, and they will win that game at Green Bay and then lose at home.
Okay, yeah. I like that all your stories have this incredible build-up, and then there's one part at the end you're like, wait, but then this is going to happen. I'm like, wait, why didn't we just end it on a high note?
It's because it's the Bears. I have to be. I've seen a lot of Bears football, Cassie. Probably too much.
All right, let's make some predictions. First, I want to go with who is the Giants starting quarterback week 10? This has nothing to do with the Bears.
Oh, my goodness. Man, there's so many different options. I'm going to go with, it's Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
He's on there.
Or Russ.
Yes. I think it's going to be Jackson Dart by then. I mean, I think I'm the only one who roots for Russell Wilson. I was rooting for him, not at the expense of Justin Fields or any nonsense like that. I just think it's over for him, and I think that it would behoove a bad team like the Giants by that time to have the rookie Jackson Dart quarterbacking.
Well, yeah. What about the Browns? Who's going to be there?
Oh my God!
What week is Browns? I think it's
It's
the. That's wrong.
It's after that 4-game gauntlet,
okay.
I believe. Oh man, you know what? Dare I just get crazy and say?
Please, by all means.
Shedeur Sanders.
I think that would be the most exciting scenario.
Everybody's gonna. Here's the thing, everybody's gonna want that.
Right.
Everybody in Cleveland's gonna. There's gonna be so much pressure just to try that. There's going to be the detractors that are gonna be like, oh, this guy doesn't deserve it. But I think everybody's got, even national, even right here in Chicago at Fox 32. I want to see Shedeur Sanders play and see what that looks like. So I'm just going to go with Shedeur Sanders.
Okay, some final
Or
questions.
Joe Flacco, just because you said I have to caveat everything.
Didn't Joe Flacco already beat the Bears once? Was that 2 years ago in
yeah.
Cleveland?
Oh,
that was one of the second half downfalls of Matt Eberflus?
Yes, and that was when he had that was the Flacco Revelation tour. And how old is Flacco now? He's
40?
40 plus.
Is that old?
Yeah, that is old. Okay. Yeah, for a quarterback anyway.
Okay, the over/under right now is set at 8.5 wins. Are you taking the over or under?
I've got the over.
Yeah, and is that
You want me to tell you my record?
Yeah, I do.
9-8.
See, I was saying 9-8 too, and then I went through game by game, and I do have them beating Commanders, which puts them at 10-7. But I have them going 2-4 in the division, which is absolutely brutal.
Okay, but 10-7 playoffs.
That would have to be wild card.
Yeah, I guess that would have to be wild card. Do you think 9-8 is automatic? I don't think 9-8 is automatic playoffs.
I don't think it is either. I think this is a really tough conference.
Is it a successful season? Somebody asked me this question, so I'll throw it at you. Is 9-8 without the playoffs a successful season? I say yes.
You say yes?
They lost 10 in a row last year, Cassie.
Okay, but it has to be paired with Caleb. I mean, obviously Caleb Williams is playing well. If they're going 9-8.
That would be the indication, right? That's a good question. I think that would, yes, that would probably suggest that he was playing very well.
Someone said, Trevor Sikkema said on PFF that the Bears are going to go to the playoffs and win multiple playoff games. I thought that was maybe a stretch. I'm like, all right, wild card round? We're happy then?
Unfortunately, to predict playoff wins is very difficult. The Bears have won 6 playoff games, I think, since 1986. So it's predicting playoff wins, that's tricky. That's very, 2? Love it, but that's tricky.
All right, Mark Grote, appreciate you coming on the off season. Oh, wait, we got to talk about these because Grote's got some new shoes. I love my shoes and my Adidas. I have a green pair, and I noticed right away that you walked in with these, I call them Rams colors,
what are you doing?
colors. I even said Michigan, and our director was like, no, it's not Michigan.
Yes.
So what's the backstory?
Well, the backstory is, Cassie, I think I told you this when you very kindly came on the Take the North podcast with Dan Weeder and I. That was an absolute blast. And I told you that you inspired me with the green Adidas, and then I went and got these Adidas. So I thought you'd be a little disappointed. They just popped at me. I saw them.
No, I'm not disappointed. I feel like I'm an influencer. And
you are an influencer.
And if my shopaholic habits can influence another person, I feel like it's worth it.
No, they did. I was like, I loved the way they looked. I was like, I've not had green shoes in my life, but then these happened. It happened. So I'm glad that you're okay with it.
They're really cool. They're a different look than the Nikes, which I had to get used to. But they are all the rage, the Adidas trend right now.
Yes,
so
okay.
I'm glad that you're on it. You're in style.
I just try to be a little bit in style sometimes.
Sometimes,
Yes,
not all the time.
sometimes.
All right, Grote, thank you so much. We appreciate your
Always
time.
love it, Cassie.
The off-season is also now available via podcast on Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.